Second segment is called In the War of Narratives, Whose Side Are Journalists On? And it's my pleasure to have with me, I can use this, two prominent journalists. Please don't feel embarrassed, but I'm right. I'm right. Codruța Simina has more than 15 years of experience in journalism, and in recent years she has specialized in investigation into online disinformation tactics and fact-checking. She's the author and co-founder of the Miss Report newsletter. I recommend to read weekly summary of falsehood and disinformation. And I'm very honored to be with us and to have Ana Poenariu. She is also a journalist. She works for the Rise Project, a community of journalists, and now at the Factual, she worked, the tense, past tense, she worked, for the Rise Project, and now she's engaged with the Factual, which I can say is one of the best, how can I say, battlefield with this kind of war of narratives. They work together, and I would like to ask them in the beginning, which project do you have now? And I know that you work together on a project, and if it is possible to talk in the beginning about this common project, and then to move to our questions.
Hello, nice to meet you all. We are working together on a new platform called Public Record. It's an investigative platform. We launched it this year. And one of our last stories that we published, it's about how disinformation works near the embassies in Bucharest. A colleague of ours, a young colleague, discovered that a new type of disinformation, let's say. There were some kind of billboards with Dalai Lama running the world, being a part of a conspiracy related to how, I don't know, big companies are basically running the world. Anyways, a craziness. So
did you find the source?
Yes, my colleague found it together with Codruța. There are these two guys. One was working in a bar in Bucharest, and the other one is the husband of a lady that's working for the fiscal authority. Taking yeah. So
take the mic. Yeah. Okay.
Is it working? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So actually, one of these two guys, one was formerly a waiter at Hanul Manuk, which is a restaurant in Bucharest, and the other one, and this one was the husband of the deputy of big contributors.
How many followers do they have with this kind of conspiracy?
It's not about the number of the followers. It's about a new source of rubbish on the informational space. And I wanted to say this because you were saying that how do journalists stay and how are we with the war on narratives? We are almost unheard because the war of narratives is about social media, which is now the mass media. And the work of journalists is always swamped in this kind of rubbish. It doesn't even matter what they are saying. They're just building up sources of nothing, information without any kind of value. And it's almost like you have an outlet, but with crap. This is what's happening right now.
At the factual, what do you think? What kind of trend is now in disinformation, besides this kind of conspiracy?
Well, in the last 2 years, we observed that disinformation on health issues is more prominent, meaning that every vaccine is bad, we are going to be chipped or some, anyways, bullshit theories. This is one of the narratives. The other one is related to issues about climate change. Basically, people, like really prominent people, for example, I can mention here Dan Negru or Dana Budanu, people with lots of followers on the platforms are the ones who are saying that there's no climate change, there's no, there's no problem with the water and so on. So these are one of the two main issues that we observed that are going over and over again. And in the last year, we observed that some pages on Meta are actually building up, disinformation by using AI, faking the words of politicians or people, who are really visible in the society and so on. For example, I remember a recent one saying that Alexandru Lafila, the Minister of Health, saying that the COVID didn't exist, the vaccines are bad, and so on. So it's really easy to identify this type of speeches, and only by looking to the images, you'll see that AI, it's not performing at the full capacity right now, and you can observe that there's something going wrong with the image, with the voice in the clip that you see. And also what we observed is that there are a lot of scam videos making people to invest in, different platforms, promising them what we had in the past. It was, I don't know if you guys remember it, we had Caritas, a financial scheme that collapsed at one point. The same thing, but in the online platforms.
Talking about the upcoming elections, I don't consider you a Mafalda, but which kind of trendy messages we will have in campaigning for presidential or position or for parliament?
Okay. First of all, it's hard for me to talk about the presidential candidates.
No, about them, about the messages.
About the messages they're sending, or about the messages, the stories around them. It's not clear for me, because I've been following their public speech, and for example, you have George Simeon, who is constantly reinforcing some anti-Ukrainian narratives. I think I saw him last week. He was in Galați, where we had floods, and he was showing some tents that were about to host people who lost their homes. And Simeon was saying something like, we've put the Ukrainian refugees in hotels, and this is what we do to our people, so we don't take care of them enough. So you can clearly see this anti-Ukrainian speech, and he's also with this sovereign bullshit that's coming from Hungary, and I don't see it gaining too much traction. There's also Diana Șoșoacă and her
Romanian
speeches
extremists.
that she's yelling.
We should explain to our foreign
Yeah,
audience.
she's a former extremist. I would not say. She's a. I don't even know how to say it. I don't consider her an extremist. She has mental issues, and I think they're serious, and it's sometimes dramatic.
But she was elected.
Yeah, she was elected.
And now
exactly.
she's in
she's
Brussels.
she's an MP. Yes. And it's going to be interesting for the Romanian public to watch her there. I mean, she wasn't received in AFD, which should say something. But to come back to our presidential candidates, I think we're going to see them talk a lot about Jesus and God
saving the nation.
Saving the nation, yeah. Mm-hmm. So a sort of nationalism with, I don't know, former characters from our history who are obviously dead. And they're not going to talk about what's important right now, and that would be like the politics. How do we serve our alliances? And
Anna, do you see any progress or any success in these kind of messages?
The problem is that there are not messages with with a meaning. It's just a pure talk. If you have the curiosity to look at the candidates, you'll see that they're having interviews in historical monuments. For example, Mircea Joana was a few days ago, which actually was the secretary of NATO. A few days ago, he was in Curtea de Argeș, where we have the historical monument, and he was speaking about the kings and so on. So, who cares? Who cares? My only concern is that it is very probable not to see people going for votes, like to vote. That's one of the things. But the interesting thing is that I don't think that we will have again debate, a debate with the candidates, with all of them, because in the last years, what's happening is that any candidate, if you look at the mayor of Cluj, for example, he didn't went to debates. He didn't had any controversial reactions with the other candidates and so on. And what they are doing is that they are not talking to the press anymore. They are using live videos saying that I'm running for the mayor house or so on. So the problem is that they are excluding the media and using the social media. Like, sometimes we don't have the chance to ask questions. Like, our current president didn't had any press conference in the last 4 years. It's like 2 or 3 questions, that's the maximum that he can handle. It's not a direct talk between the journalists and the candidates, and this is showing in their messages and so on.
Maybe it's an exaggeration. Maybe this lack of dialogue could produce monsters, because
this you were talking before, and Mr. Cosmin Popa was saying that maybe we should find out if youngsters want to live in democracies. I think we should ask them what democracy is, because they may not know it anymore. The fact that the politicians do not answer, they cannot be held accountable by journalists or by people they communicate through social media. This is not democracy. You don't have any more space for debate. They are refusing the debate which is at the center of a democracy. And when you go online and on the social networks, that's definitely not debate. Oh God, I think. And also Mr. Popa was talking about Elon Musk, who is the CEO of X, and it's very interesting that we have a platform who is trying to become a global player in politics and in war, which is something that I don't think we have seen before.
How can we countering this kind of new stakeholders in the market of communication?
I would say that it's really simple. Like, I have this saying that if we question everything, then we can, upgrade the level of disinformation and bullshit that we see in the online. If we start questioning, like, really, really everything that we see there, at one point you will be amazed that there's basically no content in the social media. It's just noise. If we do that, and
but a lot of people buy this noise.
They do it because
we have a lot of youngsters very involved in TikTok negative messages. They I don't know, I'm not a TikTok user. I don't know how to say if you share the message, how can this say it? Sharing the messages, yeah? Negative messages. And to empower these kind of bad guys, I think my question is, how can we counter this kind of communication, toxic communication?
It goes even deeper. I've seen some clips on TikTok in recent days related to human trafficking. Like young girls are selected from TikTok and they become victims of human trafficking. So it's deeper. I would say that education, it's really important. Like, if you analyze the users who are using TikTok and propagating false messages and bad messages, you'll see that there are youngsters coming from communities underdeveloped from Romania, like where they lack education, they lack financial support. It's like they don't have the chance to do anything different, because if you don't have money, you cannot go to school. You don't have the clothes, you don't have all the money necessary for buying books and so on. So TikTok is becoming an escape for youngsters coming from these areas.
Yeah, but I would like to, because we'll have this conversation on our website, languagematters.ro, and it will be watchable anytime. If I ask you to use some sound bites to talk in using the youngsters' language, how can we persuade them to be very careful when they are watching the messages on TikTok or on other platforms? How can we make them attentive
we can add a little scrap.
Or cautious?
We can add a little scrap. That's a sound that goes into trap songs. And they listen to this kind of music, so maybe like that. It's funny. I think first of all, we as adults need to understand how the social networks work. Because we go online on that space governed by some algorithms that we don't know. And we're finding out, and we're like amazed that these algorithms, at least for Meta, they are made to amplify and to spread content that provokes hate or hate speech, and we didn't know that. So before we adapt our language to the kids in order for them to pay attention, maybe we should understand first what's going on and how this platform works. Because I was just reading, there was this very big investigative work. I think Politico was the first to publish it like 2 weeks ago. And it refers to a huge FBI investigative investigation on the social design agency, which is the new troll factory of Russia, one of them, the 2 or 3 new troll factories. And I read the original affidavits that FBI, with which FBI went to the judges and asked them to seize 30 or 40 sites on the internet. And you could see on those documents the whole strategy of Russia. And as also Mr. Popa said, they're not doing something new. But what you can find there is that at each step, all these organizations and fake sites and fake pages paid a lot of money to social networks in order to amplify their subjects. Nobody's talking about that. We're talking about Russia. So maybe first of all, we should understand how these, and we call them technology platforms. There's nothing technological about them. I'm sorry. They're not that. But technology sounds so very 2024 and the future.
I was thinking about something like warning. Maybe we should pressure these guys from the huge platforms to put a warning in front of each website or each kind of communication online, warning users that is not reliable or is fictional or is conspiracy there.
Who decides what's reliable? Because we're going back to the democracy. We had, during the pandemics, the government taking down websites. It happened in 2 cases.
Not taking down, warning users.
No.
Oh, yeah.
My idea was about warning, not about taking down.
Yeah, but the problem is, who is going to decide what's reliable?
Who is going to label them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, are we going to make the minister of the truth or what? So it's again...
who will control the minister of truth? No?
Yeah. So I don't think that putting a warning on websites or sources of disinformation, it's the way, to prevent disinformation. I think that critical thinking, and only by having this in mind, question everything all the time, will keep us safe.
Now we'll take questions. Alexandra, do we have anything on Facebook?
Yes, I will have a question, like a former journalist.
Yeah?
I would like to know, how do you feel about your job? How does your job change in the face of this invasion of toxic information? Because nowadays, checking news from defects is not longer enough. We learn in school, but it's not longer enough. Social media, many channels, many information. How do you feel your job has changed?
Journalism is changing all the time because we have the platforms, we have new tools that are developing. Actually, we are using AI in our work. Like, it's helpful for us. AI is not something bad 100%. It depends on how you use it. In this way, I could say that all the developments of the tools helped journalists becoming greater, But on the other side of the coin, there's the problem with how journalism actually gets to people, the public, because you have this invasion on the social networks of every type of information that you want, but not the real news. So I'm not sure how to explain. In the past, like how it's changed. In the past, we had newspapers printed, right, on paper. People will go and buy the newspapers and get informed. This is not existing anymore because it happened not only in Romania, it happened all over the world. The new technology made print press disappear. This has definitely changed, but most of the newspapers from Romania, at least, are dependent on social media networks. Like colleagues from the investigative area are saying that they are getting overwhelmed because they have, besides doing investigation, they have to prepare stuff, different content for Facebook, for Instagram, for TikTok, and so on. So it takes us more time than just to do the story, print it, and get the newspaper to the reader. So yeah, it's not 100% bad, it's so and so.
So the question was, how did my job change during the last 10 years, maybe? Well, I can tell you that the first detail that I've started noticing somewhere around the middle of 2020 was the attention span of readers would start to shrink. And it has. I think you have noticed that the beautiful long form has kind of died. And I think, and I go back to, we don't understand enough what the social networks are doing to our brains, and we don't study that enough. And I think the shrinking of the attention span is actually a sort of new result of the fact that we started to consume information, content. We call it content. Yeah, so it's not a feature or an interview now. It's content, and we're consuming it. And I think that actually what is shifting fundamentally in the last years, it's the way that people perceive journalists. Because, and this is also a result of the propaganda. And you're gonna see politicians who are constantly targeting journalists as institutions, as media institutions. And I'm afraid the golden age for journalism is kind of over. And we're gonna have to start defending this job for a while, and then maybe the audience doesn't need it anymore, and you cannot force it on people. I don't know, but I do have this feeling that there has been a major change in the way the public perceives media.
Okay. Other question? Yeah, we have.
Yeah, there's another.
Other questions? Okay.
Please.
Hello. I really liked your observation about critical thinking.
Could you present yourself?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm Răzvan Pindic. I come from this faculty. I'm practicing psychotherapist, and I'm interested about social media and journalism and how we encounter messages on them. It's very relevant for psychology, but also for politics. And I'm curious, you mentioned that critical thinking is a solution this problem with propaganda and disinformation against the call for warnings. But isn't it too late for critical thinking? Because today, for example, in Europe, we have the Digital Services Act, which was adopted this year, and practically it ended the need for critical thinking, because now big platforms are forced to apply mechanisms against disinformation and misinformation, and if they don't do that, they are charged with 6% of their global how do you call it? Income. Yeah. So again, you talked about Twitter, but
do you know what the Digital Services Act is requesting from big companies? Like, first of all, in order to comply with the Digital Services Act, you have to have over 40 million users.
Yes, it's only the biggest platforms of all, like Facebook, Google,
But do you know
YouTube
how the European Union is implementing the Digital Services Act? Because they're not saying social media should delete something from its network. They are asking the social networks to analyze themselves and present a report at every 6 months.
Yes, it's even worse. It's
no, it's not. They have it's like you are letting the social media regulate itself and tell you about this information on what they found.
Well, I've studied the Digital Services Act, and it's a very complex regulation and very detailed, and you have the details for everything you have to do there, and you have even themes that you have to assess, like gender violence, and you have examples of themes you have to treat in a certain way and not in another way. So in this sense, what do we need critical thinking for?
Digital Services Acts, but what I can tell you, and it's been a debate, is the fact that the European Union, and this is, I think it's a very good start for a region in this world. It's a very good start for trying to have some rules for social media, because we perceive them as mass media. The public perceives them like that. And I am a journalist. I have to follow some rules, you know, in my work. It's just like, I don't know, when you fly an airplane, you have to follow some rules. We follow some rules for journalism. But now social media is perceived as a source of information. So it's not problematic that they have to have some principles and criteria. The European Union is not asking them to delete this piece of information, or they're asking them to be responsible for what content flows in their network. Because you may have, for example, and again, this investigative piece that I was talking about before, so you do have malign actors who pay to amplify false content and narratives. And you should be at least aware that they are being paid, that they are being falsely amplified. Because when you go online, okay, on a social network, you think you're there and your friends are there and people that you know are there, right? And they're posting things about their life and you like them, and it's actually, there are malign actors there. There are parties amplifying their messages, paid. I mean, it's not a copy of the reality, but we perceive it like that. So it needs to have rules.
Even more rules than there are now. Yeah. The problem with the Digital Act, from my opinion, is that it's about self-regulation. It's like you put the one who cuts the tree to go and see how many trees the person cut it. It's like you cannot control yourself. I think the European Union needs a mechanism outside from these big tech companies who can go and see what they are doing. It's not enough to give reports in every 6 months and say, oh, we did that, everything is fine. But in fact, everything it gets even worse.
It's the same thing you said. Who will be the regulator and who will monitorize the regulator? And
I think it would be very nice just to open this conversation, because you're rarely going to find politicians who want to talk about this, because they're one of the main beneficiaries of this system.
and huge companies also.
Dana, can I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
2 words about the DSA? I've been participating.
Nicoleta, she's the next speaker.
Nicoleta Fotiade from Mediaway Society. I've been participating in discussions about how to implement the DSA in Romania with the national agencies that.
Good luck with that.
I think the DSA as a legal document from the European Union, it's okay. What it matters is how the member states will implement the DSA. In Romania, at this point, they are still figuring out. It's not only Romania.
We're still at the Consiliul Național al Audiovizualului.
No, it's past that. It's the agency, I forgot its name, the agency that is regulating.
ANCOM? Regulating. Okay.
Thank you, ANCOM. It's not only Romania. Most of the member states are still thinking, Germany, for instance, they have put together an advisory board from different stakeholders to understand how this can be implemented. Research is being, planned. The problem is, in Romania, for instance, what ANCOM proposed, was a lot of monitoring on small websites, like the comments. That if you have a blog and you have comments on your blog, you are an actor under this law. You have to write reports to ANCOM and say that nothing happened on your website, which is a waste of time and energy for everybody.
And it won't solve anything.
Exactly. The big stakes are with the big tech companies. So yeah, it just started this year. But to answer your question, I don't think the DSA will solve the problem of people understanding or spotting this information and confirming this information, because regulation and the media literacy education, they come together, of course, because there are power relations that the media user cannot, the media user doesn't have the power the tech company has. And these things should exist. So I say it's not too late for critical thinking. Never it's too late.
We'll talk about critical thinking in the next segment. Thank you very much, ladies.